What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. If you're new to the channel, I'm waiverwirequeen. Welcome. Today's episode, we're going to talk about 3 sleepers I simply love at the running back position this year in fantasy football. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you prepare for your upcoming fantasy football season and keep you competitive weekly throughout the fantasy football season so you can achieve your ultimate goal. And your ultimate goal should be to compete for a championship and win. Let's get right into these 3 running backs who I feel are sleepers and I simply love. And we're going to talk about 3 running backs you're starting to hear more about. And I'm going to rank them from third down to my most favorite this year. When you think of the running backs with the Colts, obviously the first running back that should come to mind is Jonathan Taylor. He is their bell cow and simply is obviously the best running back on that roster. However, Hines is going to have a nice bounce back year. After coming off a very good 2020 season where he had over 480 receiving yards, which was a career year for him, he took several steps back, and obviously he took several steps back because Jonathan Taylor was simply impressive. He was the number 1 ranked running back in fantasy. He had a hell of a season. He was in the MVP conversation in the NFL, and there was nothing else the Colts could do but give the damn ball to Taylor. The type of season he was having, that was the right choice. So Hines took a huge hit last season, but I do believe he's going to have a nice bounce back season because the Colts simply cannot give Taylor that many touches again. It's just not a good move long term. So I do anticipate he's going to see a lot of carries, but I do believe they're going to kind of scale back on those touches. I mean, 332 rushing attempts and a total of 383 touches. That's a lot, okay? That is too much for a running back. You know, the shelf life for a running back is short as hell. So I do believe they're going to cut back a little bit. So you'll see Hines on the field a little bit more. He's the perfect running back in a PPR league. So if you are in a PPR league and you are drafting and you're looking for a running back late, especially if it's a deep league, then Hines should be a running back that you consider. Again, 2021 was terrible. It was 40 receptions, 310 receiving yards, which was a career low, and 1 touchdown. That was horrible. After the 2020 season, we expected him to do even better in 2021. But again, when you're Taylor and you're the Colts and Taylor is having this career season, a season that's going to go down in the history books at the running back position, you give him the damn ball. However, that should change slightly. It's not going to hurt Taylor's production. It won't, but you'll see more of Hines, and he should have a nice bounce back year, similar to his 2020 season. That is what we are hoping for. If he comes out with a dud again in 2022, then, you know, just move on from him. He is a late, low risk, high reward pick. Once you get into the later rounds of your draft, you really should have your list of sleepers and players that have the potential to help you. They're not going to help you every week in some cases, but a player like Hines can come in there and be serviceable at times for you as a flex play this season. Coming in at number 2 is Brian Robinson, running back with the Commanders. That is right. You're not hearing me talk about Gibson. I talked about him early on in the season that his stock was down, and it's probably going to continue to go down if he don't hold on to the damn football. Gibson fumbled in the Commanders preseason game, and you know, all of the Commander fans are like, we want Robinson, especially Robinson comes out and he plays well. But with Gibson, this has to be an issue, right? Yes, 2021 season, 6 fumbles. Part of the reason why they drafted Robinson, and he's unable to remain healthy, even though he did have a nice bounce back season towards the end of the year. 6 fumbles is a lot for your starting running back. Those fumbles are costly. Okay. So most teams want a running back who can hold on to the ball, and to start out in the first preseason game and fumble the ball is a problem. If he fumbles the ball one more time in preseason or even in practice, show signs that he can't hold on to the damn ball, Brian Robinson gonna snatch that job up. So he better hold on to the ball. If I have Antonio Gibson, I am handcuffing him with Brian Robinson because, again, the injury concerns for Gibson and then the fumble concerns. It is a concern. Okay, you don't fumble 6 times last season and then first preseason action you fumble the ball. But with Brian Robinson, the Commanders drafted him, and so most people were surprised because it's like, well, you have Gibson, and you talked McKissick into coming back and not signing with the Bills. Well, Robinson is drafted, and now you're like, oh, okay, that's shocking. Okay, first preseason game, Robinson looked really good. 6 attempts, 26 rushing yards, a touchdown, 2 receptions, and 15 receiving yards. He looked solid. I'll tell you this, he's going to take some of those goal line touches, all that red zone action away from Gibson. Let's be clear, Gibson's stock, again, is on the decline, like I mentioned earlier this year. And it will continue to decline because they're going to try to get McKissick involved, and they damn sure are going to try to get Robinson involved. And if Robinson continues to play well and Gibson continues to fumble the ball, then there's going to be some conversation about who will be our starting running back, because fumbling the ball, turnovers, will get you on the bench or pulled from the starting lineup expeditiously. Okay. Yes, I said expeditiously because now you're taking away potential scoring opportunities and giving the other team opportunities to score the ball, which puts your defense at a disadvantage and may cost you some games. So that is why Brian Robinson is on this list. If you are in a dynasty league, you draft Brian Robinson, especially in your rookie drafts. If you're in a redraft league, we all know that Gibson is still going to go ahead of Robinson, and he should, because he is the starter. But if I were a Gibson owner, I would make sure late or prioritize Robinson. Don't reach for him because there's no need to reach. But if you continue to see Gibson struggling with fumbles, then don't even draft him. Go on and get somebody who you know is going to start. There's no job security at risk because he's fumbling the ball. But if you do decide to go for Gibson, then you definitely should prioritize Robinson because he's going to be in the mix. My preference would be to stay away from Gibson. But again, if you do feel like, hey, you have to have him on your team, just know that there's going to be some headaches, because if he fumbles the ball, that's one headache. And then you're going to be wondering, well, is Brian Robinson going to replace him as the starter? You already know McKissick's going to take some of that third down work, any passing situations away from Gibson. And then Robinson may take some of that red zone goal line work away from him. So that's a lot to have to think about for your starting running back. So for me, it's just stay away from Gibson. But again, if you have him, then you should be prioritizing Robinson. I would prioritize Robinson over McKissick, especially in a dynasty league. Let's talk about my top sleeper running back, Kenneth Gainwell. That is right. Yes, he's dealing with a hip injury. He returned back to practice on Sunday. He's getting a lot of action and a lot of work with the first team, which is a surprise. But however, it's training camp, so a lot, you can kind of read into some of the stuff that's going on, and then some of the things you simply don't. We know that Miles Sanders has dealt with several injuries. He's unable to remain healthy for an entire season. So that is part of the reason why Gainwell was drafted. They have other running backs in the mix. However, I don't think any of those running backs are going to end up being the number 2 back behind Miles Sanders. I believe that will be Kenneth Gainwell's job. And I do believe that Gainwell may take some touches away from Miles Sanders if he's not producing, or if obviously he ends up injured. So Kenneth Gainwell is a great pick late in your draft. He's a PPR back. He's gonna take some of those third down situations away from Miles Sanders. And again, the biggest factor is Miles Sanders is unable to remain healthy. So you know that, one, they want to get Gainwell more involved this season, and two, there's a possibility he will play more because of the factor of Miles Sanders unable to remain healthy. He didn't have such a great rookie season, but it happens when you're drafted to a team that has an established starting running back. It's not like you're going to come in and take their job. However, he had some moments where he had to step up in a lead role, and he was solid. And that's one of the reasons why they're going to get him more involved. 2021, again, it wasn't that great. 68 rushing attempts, 291 yards, 5 touchdowns. Not bad for a running back who simply wasn't truly in the mix. It was Boston Scott a lot of times ahead of him. And then when we thought that Gainwell would be the guy, Jordan Howard came into the mix. So they have a lot of running backs, which I'm not surprised, because again, when your starting running back is unable to remain healthy, you're going to have a lot of backs. They got Kennedy Brooks, too, undrafted rookie they signed. So they have quite a few running backs on this roster. However, they're not going to surpass Gainwell this season unless Gainwell just comes out and he's stinking it up, okay? Receiving work, passing situations, Gainwell will be on the field more often. 33 receptions, 253 receiving yards in 2021, and a touchdown. Those stats will go up. If Gainwell were to increase his receiving stats to, say, 40 to 45 receptions, maybe 400 receiving yards, add a few more touchdowns, I would be very pleased with that production late in a fantasy football draft, because again, you have to really be on your A game late in the draft, because if you're in one of those deep leagues and you have the way the roster settings are, where you have several bench positions and there's a lot of teams again in the league, you may have to draft a Kenneth Gainwell, and he may come in and be helpful to you. Guarantee you, if you're a Miles Sanders owner, if you have him, you should make sure that you handcuff him with Gainwell, especially in a dynasty league, because again, the health concerns and the fact that Gainwell is going to be more involved this season. Rushing stats for 2022, if he was to see maybe 75 to 80 rushing attempts and push that to maybe 350, maybe even more than 350. Let's start at 400 to 450 rushing yards. And you figure in 2021, 5 touchdowns. So I would say stay within that 5 touchdown range. I would be pleased with that. So Gainwell is looking like a sneaky late steal that is going to produce for you as a flex appeal, pretty much. It's going to have some flex appeal certain weeks, especially when Miles Sanders may not, if he's not playing well, if he gets hurt, and if, say, you have other running backs who are on a bye week, or if some of your running backs that you drafted aren't playing well, and you start to see Gainwell playing better, there goes that smart move of you drafting him. You just got to make that choice on if you should take a chance on him, and I do believe you should, because he's going to outplay his stats from 2021, and that's all you can ask for from a player coming off your bench, because again, you have to build your bench. You're not going to have if you're in a deep league, you're not going to have Mike Evans and Juju, all of these type of guys coming off your bench. If you're in a league where 6-8 teams, then you can have those type of players coming off your bench. Not going to happen. You're not going to have Ramondre Stevenson coming off your bench in a deep leak. So players like Kenneth Gainwell may be the type of guy that's coming off your bench. And if he is playing and on the field a lot and producing, then he's helping your team out. If you draft Kenneth Gainwell and say someone has Miles Sanders and say something happens where Miles Sanders isn't playing well or he gets hurt, then you can use Gainwell as a player to add some more assets. So don't just look at it as, well, I'm adding Gainwell just because he's playing well, he's going to play well, and he's a player on my team. You can use Gainwell as an asset to acquire a better asset or a different asset. So think about that too when you're drafting. It doesn't have to always be, well, these are the players I'm drafting, these are the players I'm keeping. Your team can change a little bit. You can use that strategy to draft certain players who may help you at a certain point during the season acquire a different asset of need. Because again, you draft your team, anything can happen. This is football. Injuries are part of the game. So you know that certain players may get hurt, and it can be any player, and you may have to make a move. I'm not saying Gainwell's going to bring you Justin Herbert. I'm not saying that, but he may bring you a player of value, because as soon as something were to happen with, say, Miles Sanders again, Gainwell would be the guy that would most likely start, right? We're hoping, because we thought that last season, but I do believe it would be the case this year. And then what? That person who has Miles Sanders may have to come to you for a trade of Gainwell. So again, don't look at it as I'm drafting certain players and they're going to just remain on my roster. You may utilize those players to acquire different or better assets. All right, y'all, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you throughout this fantasy football season to help you achieve your ultimate goal. And you know what that goal should be. The goal should be to make it to the playoffs, right? Make it to the championship and ultimately win your fantasy football league. I'll see y'all on Friday.
Thanks for listening to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast.